In the village of Arambara, beauty was not rare, but Abeni's beauty was feared. She walked as though the earth remembered her footsteps. Her skin carried the glow of morning dew, her eyes were composed that held secrets no one dared to question. When she passed, conversations paused. When she smiled, envy and admiration bowed together. Yet in Arambara, the elders whispered, "Beauty that is loud is never free." Abeni lived with her mother, Aralu, in a quiet compound at the edge of the village. By day, laughter visited their home. By night, silence ruled it. For when the moon blossomed, full, white, watchful, Abeni disappeared from herself. At the first crow of night insects, her body would stiffen. Her breath would slow. And then, her essence would leave her flesh. What remained behind was not beauty. Her skin would split like rotten bark. Wounds opened as though carved by invisible hands. The air around her body thickened with the smell of decay. Her face twisted into something unrecognizable, something no mother should ever see on her child. And in another realm, where darkness and cold rule without sky, Abeni stood before a mysterious being without pity. A creature whose form shifted like smoke and bone. Without a word, it struck Abeni with sharp objects, blades not forged by human hands, piercing her flesh again and again. Each strike echoed pain into her sleeping body. Each wound was deliberate, careful, as though the creature was crafting something. Abeni screamed, but no sound crossed the realms. When the moon finally bent westward, her essence returned. By dawn, the wounds closed. The stench vanished. Her skin became smoother. Her beauty multiplied. This began when Abeni was 10 years old. She told no one. Not even her mother. Years passed. Girls married. Children were born. Songs of womanhood filled Arambara. Abeni grew older, but untouched by marriage. At 30, her beauty no longer brought praise. It brought suspicion. What kind of woman rejects all men? Is she proud? Or cursed? Aralu's heart broke quietly. Abeni was her only child, her last thread to the world. When the whispers grew too loud, she carried her daughter to a sage who lived where the forest thickened into silence. The old man listened. He burned herbs. He stared into the shadows. And then his voice dropped. "Your daughter is bound to a being of another realm." Aralu trembled. "If she marries," the sage continued, "the creature will kill her husband. If she marries men after men, the creature will kill all of them." Abeni froze. This was the first time she heard that her suffering had a name. When Aralu begged for a cure, the sage said, "Bring me her grandfather's hunting attire." The words shattered Aralu. Her husband's family had cast her out many years ago, after her husband's death, after she failed to birth a male child. Returning to that house was not just shameful. It was dangerous. But the sage was firm. Without it, the chain cannot be broken. That night, under a restless moon, Aralu made a decision. She would return to the house that rejected her. She did not know that this choice would cost her life. And somewhere, beneath the forest floor, something listened and smiled. Aralu returned to the road she had sworn never to walk again. The path to her late husband's ancestral home had not changed, but she had. Her wrapper was older, her steps slower, her heart heavier. Each footstep carried memories of laughter that once lived there, and the silence that chased her away. When she arrived, the compound loomed tall and unwelcoming, its rough walls edged with cracks. There was no sound of children or animals. The elders saw her and frowned. Why has the woman who bore no son returned? She knelt. She begged. She spoke of her daughter, of suffering, of a sickness that lived beyond sight. She asked only for the hunting attire of her husband's father, a relic long unused, hanging in dust and memory. The answer was laughter. You want the power of this house after being sent away? One of the elders shouted. Go back to the place you belong. Stones followed the words. Eralu fled, her dignity torn like dry cloth. That night, desperation whispered another path. She sold her last valuables. With trembling hands, she hired men with rough voices and sharp eyes to steal the attire under darkness. They entered the compound like shadows, but they never came out alive. By dawn, their bodies lay at the gate, necks broken, blood soaking into ancestral soil. The village gasped. But one person did not gasp. The leader of the men had stayed behind. He was a silent and dangerous man who never forgave. When he learned his men were dead, rage hardened his heart and he decided to destroy the old woman. At dusk, as Eralu returned from the stream, she was shot at close range. No screams echoed. No witness stood. Only her body lay twisted beside the footpath, eyes wide as if still pleading. When Abeni found her mother's corpse, the sky darkened. She did not cry at first. She simply sat beside the body until night swallowed the village. From that day, Abeni became a woman without roots. The sage heard of Eralu's death and closed his door. Fear silenced him. The elders avoided Abeni's gaze. Her beauty became a reminder of blood. Years passed. Loneliness hardened into endurance. But cruelty has friends. Abeni's closest companions, Tinuk and Ibiden, began to change. Where they once listened, they now accused. You enjoy this attention. Your beauty is useless if no man claims it. They brought her a suitor, a man who had waited for years, stubborn with desire. Abeni refused. She cried. She warned them without telling the truth. They threatened her. Marry him, or lose us. Then, Abeni surrendered. The marriage was loud. Drums drowned out. The moon watched quietly. That night, Abeni trembled as she lay beside her husband. Sleep came late. But the morning came without him. He did not breathe. His body was cold. By noon, the village roared. Curse woman. No one defended her. Not Tinuk. Not Ibiden. Abeni fled. She went back to the sage. But this time, the old man did not speak gently. He said, You must hear the truth, you were spared. And with those words, the past began to bleed into the present. The sage did not ask Abeni to sit. He asked her to listen. The curse you carry, the old man said, did not begin with you. It began before your name was spoken. He rose and reached for a calabash sealed with red thread. When he opened it, the air changed, thick, bitter, heavy with memory. Long ago, before Arambara had a name, the forest was alive in ways men feared. It belonged not to humans alone but to beings older than villages, older than fire. They lived unseen, guarding the land, feeding on moonlight and silence. Then came the hunters. Abeni's grandfather was among them. They were men celebrated for bravery and feared for skill. They believed the forest belonged to whoever could conquer it. When animals began to disappear and hunters vanished, they blamed the unseen. So they planned an extermination. They mixed poisonous powders, ashes of deadly roots, crushed bones, venom stolen from snakes. On a night when the wind leaned toward the forest, they released it into the air. The forest screamed. Creatures fell. Some dissolved. Others crawled deep into the earth. The trees blackened. The moon hid. Days later, when the hunters returned to claim their victory, one thing remained. A creature, half form, half shadow, still breathing. It was wounded beyond repair. It begged. It spoke in a voice like cracked stone. "Spare me, and your blood will never know hunger." Abeni's grandfather did not listen. He did not kill the creature either. Instead, he buried it alive, chaining its essence beneath the earth with iron charms and hunter's blood. He sealed the ground and left. Years passed. The grandfather died. And death loosened what life had bound. The creature did not rise at once. It learned patience. It waited until the bloodline thinned. It waited until sons were born, and killed them in silence. One by one, children of the hunter's house died of strange sicknesses, accidents, disappearances. Until only one heir remained. Abeni. "But why me?" Abeni whispered, her voice shaking. The sage's eyes softened. "Because you were born during a moon blossom. Because your spirit is strong. And because the creature does not want to kill you." Abeni's stomach turned. The creature wanted to use Abeni's body to kill men. The wounds. The nightly torment. The multiplication of beauty. Each night, as Abeni's essence wandered unknowingly into the creature's realm, it carved its pain into her flesh, turning memory into scars, scars into power. Abeni's beauty was not a gift. It was harvested suffering. When she married, the creature struck through her body, killing the man who dared bind himself to its vessel. Abeni collapsed to her knees. "All my life, I was paying for a crime I never committed," she said. "Yes," the sage replied. "But crimes ignored grow teeth." Silence fell. Then Abeni raised her head. "Can it be ended?" The sage hesitated. "There is only one way." The sage looked toward the forest and said, "We must return what was stolen." And in the distance, thunder roared, though the sky was clear. They entered the forest at dusk. The sage warned Abeni not to look back, not to call any name, not even her own. The forest they walked into was not the forest people spoke of. This one remembered blood. The air was cold despite the heat of the season. Trees leaned inward, their roots twisting like knuckles beneath the soil. No birds sang. Even insects kept silent, as though the forest itself was listening. As they walked deeper, Abeni felt it. The pull. Her body grew heavy. Her skin burned. Old wounds, long healed by daylight, began to throb beneath her flesh. "The moon blossom is near," the sage murmured. "It knows you are coming." At the heart of the forest stood a clearing where the earth looked sunken, as though something massive had once been pressed into it. Charms lay broken, iron rusted into dust, symbols half swallowed by soil. This was the prison. The sage planted his staff into the ground and began to chant. The words were old, older than Arambara, older than names. The wind answered first. Then the earth trembled. A sound rose. Not a roar. Not a scream. But heavy breathings. The ground split. Darkness spilled upward, folding itself into a shape that defied form. It was neither fully flesh nor shadow, neither dead nor alive. Its presence crushed the air from Abeni's chest. She fell. "Daughter of the hunter," the creature said, its voice echoing inside her skull. "You have carried me well." Abeni tried to speak, but pain locked her tongue. The sage stood firm, sweat pouring down his face. "She is innocent," the old man said. "Your enemy is dust." The creature laughed, a sound like bones grinding. "Innocence does not erase hunger." The creature responded. The moon began to rise. Abeni screamed as her essence tore free, suspended between body and shadow. The creature reached for her, but the sage struck the ground with his staff. "I offer you remembrance," the sage shouted. and release. The creature paused. What do you want? Abeni cried, tears streaming from both spirit and flesh. For the first time, the creature hesitated. I want the forest restored in story, the creature said. I want my suffering spoken, not buried. And I want the hunter's blood to choose. The sage turned to Abeni. This is the price, he said softly. You must tell this story or the curse will cling to you forever. Tell. Abeni screamed. The word cut deeper than any wound. Abeni remembered her mother's body. Her dead husband. The nights of agony. The years of loneliness. Her hands trembled. But then she spoke. I will tell the story, Abeni said. Not because it's a good one to tell, but because I refuse to remain in this prison. The forest exhaled. The creature's form began to unravel, not into nothingness, but into memory, dust, whispers, wind. You are free, the creature said. And so am I. The moon reached its peak. And Abeni's pain disappeared. As the sage and Abeni left the forest, the trees no longer leaned. The sound of birds returned to the air. And the path behind them closed as though it had never existed. When Abeni touched her skin, it was whole. No hidden wounds. No burning scars. No echo of pain waiting. The sage said nothing as they walked back to Arambara. Some victories did not need explanation. By the time they reached the village, dawn had arrived. People gathered slowly, unsure, whispering. The woman they once called Curse stood before them, unchanged in beauty, yet altered in presence. There was a stillness about her that unsettled them. Later that night, when the moon blossomed, Abeni did not feel any pain. No screams. No blood. No tearing of flesh. She slept freely. When morning came, she woke up laughing for the first time in decades. The sage left without ceremony. Before going, he told Abeni that the story must be told. And Abeni told the story and the village discovered the truth, old songs, buried warnings, the history that was kept far from reach. Shame followed understanding, but forgiveness did not come easily. Abeni did not wait afterwards. She left Arambara. Some say she traveled far, carrying stories where scars once lived. Others claim she became a keeper of forgotten histories, reminding villages that cruelty returns wearing beauty or sorrow. One thing is certain. Her beauty no longer multiplied from pain. It came from freedom. And when the moon blooms now, it does so without blood, only light, watching quietly as the world turns. Thanks for watching. Kindly subscribe for more stories.